Welcome to my cherry guide for UFO 50's Attactics. The cherry requirement is to beat the 24 levels of the campaign and also to reach rank 100 in ranked mode. In both modes, the goal of the game is to get units to the opponent's castle and to stop enemy units from reaching yours. Each castle has a number of flags on them which indicates how many units need to reach it to win the match. In the campaign, you'll learn about the various units as you progress, and get thrown into various scenarios that will teach you a bit more on how you can use them. Each scenario will give you and your opponent various unit types, as well as different flag amounts. Often the enemy will also reinforce at a much faster rate. You can see all of this before each level. Each level is short and easy to replay, so don't be too afraid to fail. In ranked mode, you will start at rank 10 and move up or down depending on the result of each match. In my experience, you get 10 ranks for a clean win without losing any flags, 4 if you lose a flag but still win, and -5 if you lose 0 to 3. I never encountered a different outcome, but it will likely rank you up or down at various amounts depending on your result. Obviously, if you get 9 clean wins, you can get to rank 100 no problem. I got to rank 100 with 1 loss, 2 wins where I lost a flag, and 9 clean wins. First, I'd like to go over the game's combat. You can only move your units, then between movement phases, any that are capable will attack automatically. There are a multitude of units with a variety of attacks and HP stats, and effectively the goal is to try and deal damage without taking too much in return. Since the enemies will spawn in more frequently, you won't be able to get away with trading units back to back. For this reason, keep an eye out for situations where you can get free hits or extra hits. It varies depending on unit how to go about this, which I'll go over later on. For the game's movement, you can move any unit up, down or backwards as long as they're within your half of the field. You cannot move units forward, so bear that in mind. Sometimes it can be good to move units backwards so that you have multiple units bolstering a lane so that you can overwhelm the opponent, since often with one rogue guy moving forwards they can easily be blocked. Moving a unit into another unit swaps their position. This can be used to bring a unit forward by getting them to switch places with another unit. There are a variety of units, so it can often be beneficial to do this. Just be mindful of this, as sometimes you can move a unit into danger by swapping. I know I got caught out a few times by this. The tricky part about the movement is that you only get a small window to move your units each turn, so often you won't be able to adjust all of your units. It's just a mad dash to try and move what you can without messing up and switching out the incorrect units. I found it really fun trying to rush through whatever moves I could. It definitely forces you to think fast. There is also a promotion mechanic. Basically, whenever a unit kills something, it will get promoted and will deal double damage. You can see a unit is promoted if its health bar is replaced by stars. Units cannot be promoted multiple times, so the damage cannot continue to multiply. In the later campaign levels and in ranked, there is a hero unit you receive every 5 promotions. Try to give unpromoted units the last hit to promote them. You should also try to save promoted units from trading when the opponent only has 1 HP remaining. By doing this, you can save the double damage hit for a new enemy and get more than just a trade with a 1 HP enemy. In this scenario, you often easily promote another unit which has the additional benefit of getting you heroes faster. Now let's go over the units themselves. To start with, the standard unit, the grunts. They're your bog standard unit, only hitting in front of themselves and having 3 hit points. That said, there is something special about the grunts. The first tip you get for the first encounter is that grunts in columns of 3 will take no melee damage. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even notice this until I was watching the gameplay back, but it will definitely be worth backstepping the grunts to achieve this. When they do this shouting motion, that means they are immune to melee damage that turn. They don't have to be in a column with grunts, but they do have to be other allied units, and they cannot have any gaps in the column. Obviously, still be wary of ranged attacks as well. Again, I didn't knowingly go for this in my run and still had an alright time, but by doing this you'll have an even easier time of it. Archers are an incredibly valuable unit. They only have 2 HP compared to the grunts' 3. They can shoot across the lane, hitting enemies before they have a chance to hit them. Make sure to position your archers so that they can fire on enemies before they get too close. Also be wary of enemy archers and move your units to avoid them until they're close enough to get into combat. I found archers to be one of the most valuable units, since they can take out enemy units without trading health back themselves. Archers will not shoot if an ally is in front of them, so make sure to keep the space in front of them clear. Archers will also not move forward on turns that they shoot, but will when they have nothing to hit. Often I found it worth keeping the archers far back in order to keep them alive so they can continue to take out multiple enemies for free. Shields are great frontrunners for lanes, particularly going into archers since they completely block the arrows. They have 5 health total. Getting hit by 2 melee attacks will break the shield, so they won't be able to defend from range after that. Shields will not attack until their shield is broken. This means that shields reach a stalemate if meeting another shield. You can use this to pile up groups of enemies while only having one shield blocking all of them. Make sure there isn't an enemy spear behind the shield, as they will be able to hit from 2 spaces away. Cavalry move twice as fast as regular units. I often use them to try to rush down a lane without any enemy units, just as a potential free hit. As well as moving faster, they also charge for enemies when they kill them, meaning they can also cover ground on turns that they attack. Cavalry can easily get blocked by friendly units since they move much faster, so try to give them free space to move. The spearmen are one of the strongest units in my opinion. They hit both spaces in front of them so they can hit multiple enemies at once. You can also move a spearman back a space if there's a unit in combat with them in order to hit them for free before they move forward. When you have 2 spearmen following one another, feel free to switch them when the front one is low to keep them both alive for longer. A promoted spearman behind any unit is an absolute beast, so always prioritize having them behind another unit where possible. Assassins throw daggers up and down. For this reason, try to position them above or below enemies to hit them for free. Since they can attack both up and down, they have extremely high damage potential. When promoted, they can deal 4 damage a turn if positioned correctly. Even more if there's an enemy in front of them, but generally you don't want this one in direct combat. They will not fire if they're obstructed by allies, so bear that in mind. Assassins only have 2 HP, so will lose out on most straight out combat. Try to avoid it where you can. Honestly, I struggle to get much use out of these ones, but situationally, they are very strong at getting free damage out. Sappers self-destruct when they die. The explosions hit 5 blocks excluding their own, hitting both above and below itself as well as the free spaces in front of that. The explosion does free damage one-shotting every enemy, barring the shield. Any other sappers hit can set off a chain reaction. Place sappers in areas where there is a large clump of enemies where possible, and definitely be careful not to have any units next door since they can easily be caught in the crossfire. You can also sometimes target enemy sappers to kill them in the middle of a group of enemies. Heroes spawn when you promote 5 units, and they're incredibly powerful. They only appear in the later campaign levels and in ranked mode. You can see how close you are to a hero in the top left. The hero is a mixture of multiple units. They can hit 2 in front like spearmen, can block a hit like a shield, and move 2 spaces like cavalry. They also start promoted so can hit twice each turn. I like to utilise them more so as a spear user, so often place them behind a shield where possible. However, they're extremely effective against any unit in combat. So to recap, use archers to clear lanes as they can be particularly powerful when promoted. Just be careful of shields and move them to a different lane when a shield appears. Use the shield units to block arrows or just to generally defend. Use the grunts to clear archers when they get close enough, to break shields and to stop enemy cavalry. Also try to place them in a column with at least 2 other units to make them immune to melee hits. Use spearmen to reinforce shields, grunts or other spearmen, and feel free to swap the spearmen around if you have 2 in succession in order to keep the forward one alive. You can use cavalry to try to run down a lane before the enemy can respond, or alternatively just to close the gap quickly to battle other enemies. Use the assassins to hit enemies vertically and try to keep them out of direct combat. Use sappers to clear out large chunks of enemies and be mindful of your own units getting caught in the explosion. Use the heroes to just tear through the opposition. Try to give unpromoted units the last hit on enemies to get more promotions and to also not waste the promoted units double damage. And also don't be afraid to move units backwards in order to overwhelm with sheer numbers further down the line. There will be overwhelming moments in this game, but thankfully the punishment for failure isn't very strict. Just try again and you should be able to get any level done in a few attempts. If you're interested in watching my full cherry run, there will be a link in the description or you can use the card on screen. If there's a particular level you're struggling with, you can use the timestamps in that video to see how I beat it. Bear in mind that this was my first playthrough of the game, so I was learning it myself, although I did manage to get many of the levels first attempt, barring a few of the tougher ones. That said, thank you very much for watching. Please leave any additional tips in the comments and I'll see you in the next one.